Welcome in, everyone. I hope you guys are doing great wherever you're watching from today. We have another important topic we're going to talk about, and that is President Donald Trump sending a message to the people of Gaza, the people of Israel, and everyone involved in the horrific war that is unfolded in that region of the world going back to 2023 on October 7th. Of course, we all know what happened. We've been following it in the news. There have been many movements to put an end to it, to get some kind of resolution, some kind of peace deal done. Trump is now weighing in with more comments. We're going to not just talk about his new comments, but what he said previously, as well as a Green Beret officer that was in the region and what he is saying. To put it as bluntly and frankly as possible, it is an absolute mess, and we shouldn't be afraid to call it a mess. We as Americans have the right to discuss whatever we want. And I think anyone at this point who argues that the situation in the Middle East is not an unmitigated disaster with no real closing or timeline for a conclusion on the horizon is just living with their head in the sand or living a fantasy land life. We're going to get into all of it. And I can't wait to get your guys' reactions. I know it's tragic. I know it's sad, but we got to talk about these things, because if we ignore it, if we don't talk about it, then it just goes unaddressed. And that goes for all sides. I'm not pointing fingers at any specific side here. I'm just bringing you the news. Before we get into all of that and more, please make sure to like and subscribe. Totally free. Costs you guys absolutely nothing, and is a huge, huge, huge boost to the channel. Please comment with your thoughts below on the conflict. I'm trying to respond to as many comments as I can. I want to read everything you guys have to say. Hit that bell above, turn on all notifications. That way you won't miss a single video. And then right here at the bottom of the screen, Instagram, David_Hookstead, X D Hookstead. That's where you can find me. Now let's get into it. As we know, the war has been raging between Israel, and I'm not even really allowed to say the name of the other organization because YouTube will probably restrict the video, but we know who's controlling Gaza. We know who the Israelis are fighting. On October 7th, that terror organization launched a sneak attack inside Israel using paragliders, guys crossing the border. It was a huge, huge, huge security failure for the Israelis and Bibi Netanyahu. Roughly 1,200 people died in Israel on that day, some of whom were military people, many of whom were civilians. It is a horrific, horrific attack, and there's no excuse to ever target civilians. I don't care whose side you're on. I don't care what conflict it is. The targeting of civilians is 100% unacceptable. And while we understand that sometimes there's collateral damage in war and sometimes civilians do lose their lives, it is always tragic. It is never something to applaud. It is something that should break the hearts of all rational people, which is something Vice President J.D. Vance previously said on the Theo Vaughn podcast when talking about civilian deaths. It's crazy to me. Any side, any person with a heart, any person with a brain would look at any dead civilian, no matter whether it's in the Middle East, Africa, South America, Asia, wherever it might be, and laugh about it or think it's not serious. It is tragic. And if you are a religious person, it is something that you should care about deeply, because all religions, as far as I know, teach that the loss of innocent life is not acceptable. So I condemn entirely any side that kills civilian life, starting, and we'll start with October 7th. Obviously, in the months, years that have followed, the situation has gotten more and more grave as the war has unfolded in Gaza, with some saying the death toll is as high as 100,000. Foreign media isn't allowed in, so we don't really have an estimate of the numbers. We're going by the United Nations. We're going by the Israelis. We're going by people in Gaza. Again, it is a mess. But let me throw this up on the screen for you here. This is President Donald Trump. This morning, I'm filming this on July 31st, 2025. He says the fastest way to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is for, you see the word on the screen, to surrender and release the hostages. He has surrender and release the hostages in all caps. I'll read that again for anyone who might have missed it. The fastest way to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is for that group to surrender and release the hostages. True statement. That's a true statement. if that group surrendered, put down their weapons, and turned themselves in or fled the region, whatever it might be, that would likely end the immediate suffering. However, there is much more to this very complex and very nuanced situation. And that leads me to point two. We have some people who are acting like there are no innocent people in Gaza. There are no starving people in Gaza. There's no elderly men, elderly women, mothers, children. And I've shown you videos before where you have seen innocent people that are literally rushing to get food, a situation no one in America could probably fathom being in, certainly because we don't have bombs falling on our heads here in America. So I'm going to now switch to this. So we have people, like I said, in this country who claim, whether it's in the media, social media, whatever, and that includes the Congressman Randy Fine of Florida, who I have made my opinions on very clear. I think that guy is a clown, and I think he is a fool, and I think he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about, and he loves attention, so I'm sure he's going to love the fact I even said his name here. He claims nobody is starving. Well, let's see what the president of the United States has to say. President Donald Trump has addressed this. This was from a couple days ago. Let's see what the president has to say about whether or not any innocent people in Gaza are starving.
Can I ask about the First Lady? You mentioned a couple of weeks ago her role in talking to you about the war in Ukraine and perhaps a big part of your evolution in thinking. Have you discussed the crisis in Gaza and the terrible...
I have, and she thinks it's terrible, and she sees the same pictures that you see and that we all see, and I think everybody, unless they're pretty cold-hearted or worse than that, nuts. There's nothing you can say other than it's terrible when you see the kids. And those are kids, whether they talk starvation or not, those are kids that are starving. They are starving. And you see the mothers, they love them so much, and there's just nothing they seem to be able to do. They got to get them food, and we're going to get them food.
Can I ask about the...
So those were comments from President Trump a couple days ago confirming that there are children in Gaza who are starving. And that's what puts us, I'll get this off the screen. That's what puts us in a very dicey situation, because on one hand, you got to eliminate the terrorists. On the other hand, we have innocent civilians now caught in a crossfire who don't have access to the food necessary. They've tried to set up aid stations. Americans are overseeing some of those aid stations. There have been whistleblowers from the American side who have come out forcefully and said that it is a, lack of a better term, a complete and total shit show. And there are no good answers here. That's the reality of the situation. There are no good answers here. And anyone who claims that there's some sunlight at the end of the rainbow and we can just do this one thing and it'll be over, that's just not reality. The United States military, for example, has the capabilities to fight urban warfare, take and hold ground, which is what you need to do if you want to fight in an urban setting and make sure a threat does not pop back up. Now, the rules of war require you to feed, take care, comfort the civilian population when you go into an area. We saw this happen in Iraq. We saw this happen in Afghanistan. The United States military has the logistic capabilities, the manpower capabilities, and quite frankly, the military force to enforce any measures they want to put in place. But let's go ahead and Google this real quick. I'm curious. I want to make sure that I have the direct numbers. So Israel roughly has 170,000 soldiers on active duty, 465,000 soldiers on reserve. Of course, reserve soldiers, no matter the military, whether it be the U.S., England, Germany, Russia, your reserve soldiers, while they could be great at their jobs, are not active duty personnel. They generally have other jobs, day-to-day jobs. They're not going to be getting the same level of regular action exposure, if you will. 170,000 people is not a large military at all when it comes to taking and holding territory. The United States military has more than 1 million active personnel. So when we went into Iraq and we flood the country with people, we have the ability to take territory, hold territory, provide aid and comfort for the civilian population while targeting the enemy. You would need in Gaza 400, 500,000 troops on the ground because of the tunnel system to hold that territory and adequately push out the enemy and hold it so they can't return, and then provide comfort, food, medical supplies, whatever it could be for the civilian population. You can't get it done with 170,000 active duty troops. Not even close. You're not even going to be able to put a dent into it. And it's okay to admit that. And if Israel came out and said, we don't have the manpower to really do a full-on ground operation like you would have seen the United States do in Japan, Germany, in World War II, that's why we rely on an air power capability in a more surgical ground-facing operation. That would at least be a truthful statement. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, they won't come out and say that, and it seems like we're now in a words game. My feelings on the conflict are pretty straightforward. I don't lose any sleep over bad guys getting killed. I think bad guys getting killed is a good thing. At the same time, it is heartbreaking to see innocent people on all sides, the Israeli side, the people in Gaza. It doesn't matter. When you see the videos of an 11, 10-year-old boy rummaging for food, it's terrible. Just like it's terrible when you see the videos of what happened on October 7th. One is not, the life of an Israeli is no better or worse than the life of a child in Gaza, a child in Lebanon, a child in Syria, child in America. They're all humans. In God's eyes, everyone is created equal. I'm a Christian. I fully believe that. And I wish we could figure out a way to end this where you saw Hamas completely removed from power, where you saw all the bad guys gone and all the good guys on all sides were taken care of and were living peaceful lives. Unfortunately, a military solution at this point seems highly unlikely unless other countries are going to come in, because again, you can't do it with the limited manpower the Israelis have. You would need a U.S. military style operation and U.S. military style manpower, which none of the countries over there have, to get the job done. So Trump is telling the bad guys to surrender. I think that's a good idea. I think that the bad guys putting down their weapons would bring an end to this, and they can get the hell out. And then the innocent people can get what they need, medical supplies, food, and hopefully live a peaceful life. Unfortunately, I don't think we're even close to that happening. I think you are going to see this drag on for months and months. And that, quite frankly, is a situation no one wants to see happen, but it is reality. So I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Totally free. Cost you guys nothing. Hit that bell above. Turn on all notifications so you won't miss a thing right here in the bottom of the screen. Instagram, David_Hookstead, XD Hookstead. I'll see y'all next time.